What will Luisangel Acuna bring to the Mets if he's called up in September? I'll talk about that and another Mets victory on today's show.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Well, we have arrived on the final day in the month of August. We are right here on the doorstep of September baseball, and the Mets are right in the thick of this race. September call-ups are coming. So in the final segment of the show today, I will talk about why Luisangel Acuna is most likely going to be here tomorrow and what he can bring to the table for the New York Mets. But getting to the game today, there's a couple things I want to talk about. First and foremost, it's Tylor Megill's performance. This was a big opportunity for Megill to, for one, step up for his team, and he did that. But to showcase a new sinker that we learned he's been throwing a lot in Syracuse, two-seam, where he is able to attack inside more, and that did look pretty good throughout this start. But also a chance to maybe prove himself to be a piece that could really help this team all the way down the stretch, not just for a couple starts before Paul Blackburn comes back. But I talked about it when Jordan Montgomery pitched that bulk relief game against the Mets earlier this week, where I said I could see Megill serving a similar role for the Mets because there's something to be said about having a guy in your bullpen who can go out there and sponge up 4 innings in a game that's lopsided. And we saw Adrian Houser do that a little bit for the Mets this season. Megill is a guy that is on the 40-man roster when the rosters now extend to 28 men for the final month, and you can have a 9th guy in your bullpen. Why have Alex Young or Shintaro Fujinami, some of these names that I talked about on yesterday's show, why have one of those guys that you probably won't trust pitching leverage anyway? When you see someone like Ryan Stanek, who's barely pitching right now, why have another guy that's at the back of that pecking order when instead you can have a legitimate long man that can go in there, and let's say Quintana has a start in a couple of weeks where he gives up 6 runs and he's knocked out in the second inning? Well, you could have Megill come in and maybe get you through 7 and pitch that bulk relief. I think this could be something that we see Megill do, but will I be confident in Tylor Megill to be an impact pitcher for this team? Not after the start today, even though it was a relatively good one. But here's the thing that got my blood boiling a little bit. He comes back for his much awaited return. He walks the leadoff man, gets a ground out, then gives up a double. White Sox are winning 1-0 the bottom of the first inning. And I don't know about you guys, because of the state of this playoff race where it feels like the Mets have to win every single day because everybody else is winning nearly every single day. We'll talk about that in the next segment, the wild card update. But I'm just nervous about this White Sox series, even though I shouldn't be. And when they're losing 1-0, my mind starts to go bad places. Now, there was nothing to worry about. The Mets cruise in this game. Second inning, they tie it up. Jesse Winker and JD Martinez, who are the co-MVPs of this game, they each get base hits. Jeff McNeil draws a walk to load the bases. Francisco Alvarez strikes out. Then Harrison Bader hits into what is originally called an inning-ending double play. Replay review shows that he was safe. But in that moment when he was called out, that's when I actually think my anxiety was at an all-time high. When the Mets were losing 1-0 and they load the bases and I thought they came up empty, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. From that point on, well, not that point on, because actually, let's hold up here, because the second inning, Tylor Megill gives up a leadoff single, hits a batter, gets a couple of outs. Then he gives up an infield single off his glove to load the bases, and then that was the final moment of anxiety for me. He gets out of that jam, and then the Mets put up a bunch of runs there in the third inning. You had Jesse Winker and JD Martinez again being the catalyst. Pete Alonso drew a 2-out walk. Jesse Winker doubles him home. And then JD Martinez hits a 2-run homer. Mets were then up 4-1. And at that point, Megill, maybe with the added benefit of the lead, was able to calm down. He at one point retired 10 straight batters, gets the Mets through 5 and gets the first out of the 6th. He then gives up a single, and Carlos Mendoza wasn't playing, so he goes right to his bullpen at that point. Adam Ottavino comes on. He strands that runner, picks up a couple of strikeouts, and starts what was a perfect night from the Mets bullpen. You had, after Ottavino, Reed Garrett pitched the 7th, 1-2-3. Phil Maton pitched the 8th, 1-2-3. Edwin Diaz pitched the 9th, 1-2-3. Now, there is definitely some room for debate about the fact that the Mets used Edwin Diaz in a game where they're winning by 4 runs against a team as bad as the Chicago White Sox. Huascar Brazaman was warming up next to him. Even in a 3-run game, with Edwin Diaz having pitched the last 2 nights, I was a little bit curious about even having him warm up in a save situation. Just because you would have thought if there was a day to give him a rest with a big lead, this would have been it, right? The rest of the bullpen had cruised. With that said, do I think that Carlos Mendoza made a mistake? Not necessarily, and here's why. When you have him warm up after throwing the last 2 days, the chances of him being able to pitch on Saturday are already pretty slim. And Edwin Diaz has said that he likes to work a lot, and he hasn't been able to do that. And maybe he asked to be able to go on back-to-back-to-back. Maybe he wanted to pitch in this game and articulated that to Mendoza before the outing. He wants to feel right, and this was another opportunity to get sharp, and he did have a really good inning. The other aspect of it, again, is the fact that if you already get him hot, you pretty much burn him. Now, you would say, well, why was Braziban warming up? If the game gets really lopsided in that 9th inning, then you just can't justify it. But in a 4-run game where we've seen things turn and crazier things happen, I'm not going to crush Carlos Mendoza for pitching Diaz in that spot, because if Braziban comes on, walks 2 guys, or gives up a couple hits, you're probably going to Diaz anyway, and now you have to get him up again after sitting him down. So I think this was the best thing for Edwin Diaz to stay sharp. Now, does that mean he's burned for Saturday? I think so. I don't think they're going to pitch him 4 straight days. But could Edwin Diaz now get Saturday off, come back, pitch on Sunday, be super sharp, and where he needs to be for the final stretch run of the season, potentially? So I'm not mad at it. There was a big mechanical adjustment that he made on Thursday. So now you're really locking in another game where he has a good feeling. I'm okay with it. Now, the reason why the Mets ended up with a 4-run lead is because Francisco Lindor does not give up any at-bats. He hits a double in the 9th inning to extend his hitting streak to 10 straight games. And there was only one game in between this hitting streak and a previous one. So first, in August, Lindor had a 12-game hitting streak. Then he went 0 for 3 with a walk, and now he's reeled off 10 more games. So across a 23-game span, he's gotten hits in 22 games, and his on-base streak is up to 28, I believe. So Lindor continues his MVP play. He also made an incredible leaping catch today and some other great defensive plays, as he does every single day. Shohei Ohtani is up to 43 home runs, 43 stolen bases, first player ever to do that. And they tweeted about it. And I wonder, they being MLB, tweeted about it. I just wonder if we're going to do this now for 44, for 45, for 46, for 47, 48. Like every club, are we going to do it? Oh, he now made the 44-44 club. Oh, now he made the 46-46. Like, how much coverage does this guy have to get? Because I'm becoming a Shohei hater because I'm watching Francisco Lindor do it night in, night out on both sides, providing way more value to his club based on his all-around play and his leadership than Ohtani is on a team that he's front-running on. They also tweeted out something today that this is the best record a Shohei Ohtani team has ever had. Take it for what you will. I'm a Lindor stan here, okay? I'm biased. You see the Mets flag behind me. I host the Locked On Mets. What do you want me to do? I'm going to go to bat for my guy every single game because what he's doing is MVP worthy. Great job by him in the 9th inning to extend the hitting streak, to get a double, to score another run. Brandon Nimmo got a base hit to move to 3rd, and Mark Vientos picked up the RBI with a sacrifice fly. So overall, great pitching from the bullpen. Tyler McGill did his job. He got you through 5, didn't blow the game for you. And the lineup did well as well. On top of it, not only Lindor late, but Jesse Winker and JD Martinez in the middle of that lineup. Winker has sneakily been very hot lately. So we'll see if that hitting streak can continue. I believe he's batting over 300 now in the Mets uniform. And lately it seems like he's doubling nearly every game. So this lineup is clicking, and they're going to need them to continue to do that, particularly on Saturday, as this bullpen might not have Edwin Diaz or Jose Butto. I want to talk about the upcoming game as well as give you a wild card update in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, Liquid IV. What I love about Liquid IV, first and foremost, is the taste. Strawberry lemonade. It's my favorite drink. I love Liquid IV strawberry lemonade, but also you have the convenience factor. All you do is tear open a pouch, pour it into 16 ounces of water. You're good to go. And the hydration. Powered by Liv's Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways and get the lineup graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, the Atlanta Braves won on Friday night by a score of 7-2. Ronaldo Lopez Cruz had a great start, and the lineup put up some runs early. So the Braves maintained their 3-game lead of the Mets in the wild card race. Now, for the final 2 games of this series, Braves versus Phillies, got a couple of really good pitching matchups. Max Fried versus Zach Wheeler on Saturday. I might even have to tune into that one. Then on Sunday, Spencer Schwellenbach, who's been throwing the ball well for the Braves, versus Aaron Nola. I got my Phillies flag out that I didn't know I actually had, and I am rooting hard for this Phillies team this weekend, which feels super weird and strange. But you know what? We'll see if they can pull off a series victory. They got the 2 guys on the mound that you would want in Wheeler and Nola. Hopefully, they can win at least one of these 2 games, if not both, and give the Mets an opportunity to creep just a little bit closer to Atlanta. But who knows? Maybe the Braves aren't the team that the Mets catch this year. Because you look at the Diamondbacks and the Padres, the fact that the Mets have these season series on both of those teams, so they have the tiebreaker. If they finish with an identical record to either of them, they will make the playoffs. These teams are only 5 games up, which sounds like a lot with only a month left to play, but crazier things have happened, and JD Martinez was sort of preaching this to the media after the game today. Obviously, he's saying it to the guys in the clubhouse, but he said, young players can get a little bit carried away following the other teams looking at the standings. He said, you just got to focus on yourself. You play good baseball. You're going to lose more games, but you're going to win more games too. And you just handle your own business and you see where the chips fall. Basically, when it's all said and done, it's up to the fans and the media to pay attention to that. Of course, we're locked in on it. So I'm going to keep giving you these wild card updates, but there is a world where you see the Diamondbacks or the Padres slip. Here's a perfect example. The Diamondbacks are playing the Dodgers right now, and the Dodgers are scorching. They got their healthy lineup. Not only do they have Mookie Betts back, Max Muncy's back, Gavin Lux has started to hit. Ohtani is hitting his home runs and stealing his bases, the whole deal. They're a good team. Yes, this series getting played in Arizona, and they almost mounted an incredible comeback. They lose by a score of 10-9, but they scored 4 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning. So they got right there, almost had a miraculous win, and they're playing such good baseball. It's hard for me to think they're going to just completely fall off, but there's still 3 more games against the Dodgers in this series. They're going to continue and play this one through the weekend into Monday. So if the Dodgers win the series, take a couple more games, and the Mets, win their next, let's just say they go on a little winning streak, they sweep the White Sox and win the first game against the Red Sox, all of a sudden, you pick up a couple games, now you're 3 back from the D-backs. So it really is a race that's going to change. And what we think now at the end of August could be completely different at the end of September. And here's another thing that I just really locked in on today, looking at the schedules of both the Diamondbacks and the Padres. And by the way, the Padres beat the Rays 13-5, so they stayed where they are. They're 5 games up on the Mets. The final series of the season for those two teams is against each other, Padres, Diamondbacks. So if they stay close, that could be a essential playoff series where one of those teams could knock the other one out, especially if the Mets are right there on the precipice. Now, they're going to play the Brewers, so that's not going to be easy, not to mention their second to last series is against the Braves. So everything is going to be up for grabs down the stretch, but we could be in for a very interesting final weekend of the season. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but if the Mets can hang close to those teams, one of them is going to be losing games for each of those final 3 days. It's inevitable. So there will be an opportunity for the Mets to maybe sneak up and grab a spot from either of them down the stretch because of winning the season series. That's why it was so important to win that series against the Diamondbacks. That game on Thursday looms very large. Had they lost that game, the Diamondbacks had the season series. Now the Mets have it on both of those teams. So we'll see how it all shakes out. First things first, you got to handle the team in front of you, and that's the White Sox right now. And I don't love the roadmap on Saturday because you got Jose Quintana, who is coming off a good start, and I think this is a team that he absolutely can carve against, but it's still Jose Quintana, and we have seen blowups as well. So that makes me a little nervous. And the fact that you probably won't have Edwin Diaz or Jose Butto, if it's a close game, you're going to be relying on all these guys that aren't the best. Granted, they were perfect tonight, so you could see the same group of Ottavino, Garrett, and Maton pitching. None of them pitched on Thursday, so they would all be going back to back, but not anything crazy where I think any of them are burned for the game on Saturday. You also still have Huascar Brazoban, although who trusts him for the August that he's had. You have Danny Young, who should be pretty fresh. He did pitch, I want to say every game but the final one in Arizona, but he didn't throw a lot of pitches in any of those outings, so I'm sure he's good to go. Stanek, I can't remember the last time he pitched, so he's obviously fresh. We'll see. What I would like the Mets to do is score a ton of runs against Davis Martin and just make it a foregone conclusion early. This is a series in particular where the offense should be able to step up in a big way. Sunday could be, a little bit different there because you got Garrett Crochet going, but Crochet's on a pitch count where I don't think he's going to pitch much more than 4-5 innings at most, and that's a White Sox bullpen you can still exploit. So it's all up to the Mets here to keep handling their business, beat the White Sox for these next 2 games to close out this road trip on a very strong note and come home for a couple series against the Red Sox, then the Reds, where if the Mets can win those 2 series after sweeping the White Sox, I got a feeling they're going to be within 3 games of somebody, whether that's Atlanta, whether it's Arizona or San Diego. I feel like they'll be within 3 games if they can just finish this weekend off and then win their homestand, go 4-2. I think they'll be in a pretty good spot. So we'll see how that all shakes out, but they should have a new member come Sunday of the position player group. I believe it'll be Luisangel Acuna. I want to tell you why and what he can bring to the table in just a minute. First, though, another word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps, Prize Picks is just you against the numbers. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. So right now, if you're looking at the Mets, it might be Francisco Lindor hitting more on his hits, or maybe it is Pete Alonso you believe is going to hit a home run, or maybe you want to look at his fantasy score. You can find all these things on Prize Picks, and once we get to the NFL season, that's where it gets really fun. You can look at Tyreek Hill week 1. Is he going to get more than 90.5 yards? Maybe Aaron Jones more than 66.5 yards. You can cook up your hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Stay up to date on everything in the world of sports by checking out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. Now, I could be wrong, and I will own it if I am, but I would be absolutely stunned if anybody gets promoted for the September call-up other than Luisangel Acuna. The other options are pretty limited. It's DJ Stewart, because he's on the 40-man roster, Alex Ramirez, and that's not happening. He has not played well in AA this year. There's no way he's getting the call. Then you got some non-roster guys, if you really wanted to talk about it. Mike Brasso has been okay in AAA, can play a bunch of positions. Carlos Medusa said they're going to value speed and defense. Who does that sound like? It sounds like Acuna. The only other name you can look at for speed and defense would be Drew Gilbert. Luke Ritter is just more a bat, and the Mets don't need bats, and he's slumped a little bit lately, not on the 40. I just don't see it. You don't need to protect Luke Ritter from anything. So another team grabs him if he's a minor league free agent this offseason. I hope he makes it somewhere. I really do. He's had a nice season in AAA, nice couple of seasons. But he's not the guy to help you in a playoff push. Drew Gilbert has homered in 4 of his last 9 games, starting to get it going. He obviously missed a large portion of this season due to a really bad hamstring injury. For one, it's not the right thing for Gilbert, who has not played that much baseball this year, to come up and sit on the bench. That's just, I hate to say it, but it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. I can't envision it. Yes, if you had a different team, if you never traded for Jesse Winker, maybe there would be some world where calling up Drew Gilbert would make sense. But you look at the outfield right now. You got Brandon Nimmo, who's going to play almost every single day. You got Starling Marte, who's going to start against all left-handed pitching. It's going to get some starts against righties. You have Jesse Winker, who should be starting against all righties at this point. You got Harrison Bader and Tyrone Taylor, who haven't always swung the best bat this year, but they both give you a great glove, and they've each had their moments. Bader's starting to get hot. Taylor's had a nice couple of weeks, made an incredible catch leaping into the net today. Almost forgot to mention that. Very similar to Jeff McNeil, who made a catch like that in Chicago 5 years ago, and Jeff McNeil can always go out there and get a start in the outfield. So there's just way too many mouths to feed to call up Drew Gilbert. Now, why call up Luisangel Acuna? Because he has a definable skill that this team could use. Stolen base threat. This year, I wish he was more efficient, but 35 stolen bases on 48 attempts. So he's been caught 13 times, but he does have a lot of speed. And even if you're not asking him to steal, let's just say JD Martinez, gets a base hit in the 9th inning of a tie game. All right, put Acuna in there. Maybe he steals. Maybe he just wanted to be able to go first to third on any single or score on a double. He's got lightning quick speed. He's a good base runner. That is one part of it. The other element, he does bring you a lot of versatility with his glove. He can be your backup shortstop. Now, Jose Iglesias would probably get any opportunities whenever you needed him. And the reality is Lindor's going to play pretty much every single inning. If he doesn't, well, the Mets are pretty much cratered anyway. But regardless, it does give you that option in a blowout. You can stick Acuna out there. Also, he could play second. I think he could play third in a pinch because we've seen Iglesias, Louis Guillorme as well, other shortstop be able to play that position without a ton of game time. Acuna has been playing second, short, and center field this year, but I really think he could play pretty much any position. I mean, you wouldn't want to waste him at first. And again, Alonso is going to be there every day, every inning, as is Lindor, but you really could play him anywhere if you wanted to plug him into left, center, right. I'm sure he can handle all of them. He's just a really good athlete. So if you're thinking about that last bench spot, that's probably not going to play much. That's where Acuna makes a lot of sense because he does give you a definable skill that could help you. There might be a game where, who knows, maybe you want a pinch runner early in a game, but you don't want to burn a Tyrone Taylor off your bench. Maybe you do go to Acuna. Who knows? He just gives you even more roster flexibility. Now, what has he done this season? Has he earned this promotion? Not necessarily. Lately, he's hitting 261, 272 on base, 386 slug in his last 22 games played, a 658 OPS. For the season as a whole, he's hitting 262, 305 on base, 363 slugs, 668 OPS. That OPS is pretty low in the International League. Last I checked, he was like bottom third, if not bottom quarter of the league. He has not had a great offensive season. I think he needs more seasoning in AAA, and I am a little bit concerned about his ceiling at this point. I think he's got a floor of being a really good bench piece, potentially a great bench piece when you think about his defense and his speed, which is what he's going to be able to bring to the team right now. But to be able to leverage that speed on the base pass as an everyday player, he's got to hit more. And in a league where it is, I don't want to say easy to hit, but it's definitely a hitter-friendly league, to have gone through this season with a sub 700 OPS, I'm sorry, if you think that this guy is a future all-star, you're getting swayed by the name. Could he be a really nice player? I think so. I think he could be a really good utility player. I view him as someone who his absolute ceiling is probably for the Mets, I would say, a really good defensive center fielder that steals a lot of bases. Look at what Jacob Young is doing with the Nationals. That's what I see for Acuna as far as, I don't want to say best possible outcome, because he can probably hit better than Jacob Young has this year. But if he's not doing it in AAA, it's hard for me to be completely bought in that he's going to all of a sudden click at the big league level. Now, he's had a full season. He can get more seasoning in AAA. He has an off season. He could come out and look fantastic next year. He still has a lot of talent. But I don't know really if he's going to become this star player that we were all dreaming about when you just saw the flashy name, the great AA stats that he had last year when he was traded for Max Scherzer. Now, with that said, this has been a really unfortunate season for the Mets when it comes to their position players. Had Drew Gilbert been healthy all year, I think he would have hit in AAA, and I honestly believe you never would have had to trade for Jesse Winker because Drew Gilbert might have been up in July. Didn't happen. Missed almost the whole season. Jet Williams is finally back in AA. He's got 2 weeks left. He just played his first game with 1 for 5 with 4 strikeouts. Season ends on September 15th. He has a little bit more, but essentially, 2 weeks and a weekend to make some stuff happen. And then I do think we'll see Jet Williams likely promoted to AAA just to get him some more game time. The AAA season is 1 additional week from the AA season, and the Syracuse Mets won the first half, so they will be in the playoffs. So he would get an additional week plus some playoff time, and then you get him ready for the Arizona Fall League. I think they will do the best they can to get Jet Williams in, maybe 30 games down the stretch before the Fall League. That's, again, playing 2 more weeks in AA, and then you get 1 week in AAA with the playoffs. But I'm talking about altogether this season, maybe a little over 30 games. So unfortunate year for Jet Williams, your top position player prospect. Good news is it seems like he just hit on a draft pick because Carson Bench has been on a bench in St. Lucie. I'm sorry for that pun that I'm sure a lot of people will use. Bench has 2 home runs. He's 12 for 31. He's hitting 387. He's drawn 8 walks, has a 537 on base percentage, and a 613 slugging percentage in those first 9 games. Really impressive stuff for Bench. We will see how Acuna plays as the September call-up, but I do think that's going to happen, and we'll monitor the rest of the top prospects throughout the following month of the season, and we will, of course, do a ton of prospect content in the off-season where I'll really break down the status of this system, top to bottom, pitchers, hitters, all of it. Make sure, if you don't want to miss out on any of that content in the offseason as well as down the stretch here, you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button. We want to get to 10,000 subs by the end of the season, so I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. You can follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, head over to YouTube and check out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel. Covers everything in the world of sports. Talking about Locked On Sports Today with our local experts from each team, league-wide experts from each league. Find Locked On Sports Today streaming 24/7 on YouTube.